2 centimeters. That's the number. 2 centimeters of ground movement at Norris Geyser Basin, confirmed over 12 months. Not a guess, a satellite measurement. GPS station P711 caught it first, then BRYL, then NRWY confirmed it. 3 independent stations logged the same pattern, and nobody called a press conference. The coordinates are 44.72 degrees north, 110.70 degrees west. You can look that up right now. It's in the middle of Yellowstone. And what the data shows underneath those coordinates. The European Space Agency's Sentinel-1 satellite ran InSAR imaging over the Norris Basin from October 2024 through October 2025. InSAR means it's measuring ground deformation by comparing radar passes over the same location across time. What it found was a bullseye, a perfect ring of uplift, 2 centimeters at the center, tapering outward, positioned directly over the Norris Geyser Basin. Bullseye deformation has one cause. Something beneath it is inflating. The source was pinpointed at 14 kilometers below the surface. Now here's what that number means. The last confirmed magmatic intrusion at that depth inside Yellowstone was logged in 2004. That was 22 years of dormancy, and then this. In January 2026, the USGS published their Northern Unrest Assessment for Yellowstone. They described the readings as, and this is a direct reference to the filed report, normal breathing. 3 months later, on April 10, 2026, the Institute of Geology and Geophysics of the Chinese Academy of Sciences published a revised geodynamic model of the same system. They described it as a shallow, tectonic, stress-driven mush system with no deep plume buffer. 2 institutions, the same data, 4 months apart. One of them has a federal mandate to manage public response to Yellowstone. The other one doesn't. If you've been waking up between 2 and 4 a.m. in the past few weeks without a clear reason, stay with this. The Norris Basin sits on a documented low-frequency resonance field that monitoring stations have logged since the late 1990s. When magmatic pressure redistributes at depth, that resonance modulates. It moves through bedrock, through aquifers, through anything connected to the continental water table. Some people inside monitored proximity zones have reported a pressure sensation in the chest or behind the sternum. Not pain, not illness, a pressure, the kind you associate with elevation change or a front moving in. If you've felt that in recent weeks, you're not imagining it. You're registering something your body doesn't have a name for yet. Here's the official position. USGS maintains that Yellowstone cycles through periods of ground deformation regularly. They say the 2 centimeter reading fits within the historical range of what they call inflation and deflation breathing cycles. That is a fair summary of their January 2026 report. Here's what the IGGCAS model shows about that same range. The 14-kilometer source depth sits above the zone typically associated with passive hydrothermal cycling. At that depth, the material isn't water vapor. It's partially molten rock interacting with a stressed tectonic environment. The historical range USGS cited was built on 40 years of data that did not include a dormancy break of this kind. If you've made it this far, you already sense that something about the official framing doesn't hold. So here's the thing that reframes everything you just heard. It's a description of the current state of the system. There is no deep pressure release valve operating right now. The system is holding stress with nothing below it absorbing the load. That's not a forecast. That's a structural description of what's already there. FEMA classifies Yellowstone as a Tier 1 catastrophic hazard. Tier 1 is the top designation. It means a single event with the capacity to disable national infrastructure across multiple regions simultaneously. FEMA's own filed modeling projects ash deposits reaching across 19 states in a sustained eruption scenario. That corridor runs from Idaho and Montana through Wyoming, Colorado, Kansas, Nebraska, Missouri, and into the upper southeast. Agricultural disruption in the primary ashfall zone is logged as measurable within 72 hours of a surface event. Power grid failure across the ashfall corridor is rated near certain for the first 14 days. These are not projections from an independent researcher. They're in FEMA's documentation. They filed them. The U.S. GSNUA report from January 2026 does not reference FEMA's Tier 1 classification once. Not because it's irrelevant, because the two agencies are not required to cross-reference their public communications. That gap is institutional. It's structural. And it's exactly why you can read one report and feel calm, and read the other and feel something else. Norris Geyser Basin already holds the highest recorded surface ground temperatures of any thermal field in Yellowstone. In 2003, during the last significant unrest cycle, surface temperatures in parts of the basin exceeded the boiling point. The Park Service closed trails, then reopened them without a formal announcement. Between October 2024 and October 2025, the same window the InSAR bullseye was forming, visitor heat incident reports in the Norris corridor increased. Not dramatically, incrementally. Incremental surface temperature rise during a period of confirmed subsurface inflation is not a coincidence. It's a signal. The surface reflects what the interior is doing. It always does. What changed below is already showing at the top. Bison at Yellowstone don't read seismic monitoring reports, but documented behavioral shift patterns in the park's bison population go back decades of recorded observation. In early 2026, migration tracking showed a consistent directional drift away from the Norris Basin perimeter. Not a full herd displacement, a slow, sustained drift north. That's the kind of low-pressure behavioral response researchers associate with localized subsurface stress events. In the residential zones of Gardner and Mammoth Hot Springs, veterinary clinics logged a cluster of elevated anxiety presentations in household dogs during the same period. Elk calving patterns near the Norris perimeter shifted north by several miles compared to prior year baselines. Any one of those data points alone explains nothing. All three inside the same 90-day window as the bullseye confirmation and the IGGCAS publication. That's a different kind of question. The USGS position is that animal behavior near thermal zones is influenced by seasonal food and temperature patterns, not seismic precursors. That's the official framing. It's a reasonable framing. Here's what the data shows. The directional drift in bison movement aligned north, away from the basin, not toward seasonal grazing grounds, and not toward water sources typically associated with spring migration. The drift was away from something, not toward anything. That's a distinction the seasonal explanation doesn't account for. Here's what the entire structure of this story has been building toward. Every time Yellowstone gets covered, the frame is the same. It's a countdown, a threat approaching, something to watch for. That's not what the April 2026 IGGCAS model describes. The bullseye formed, past tense. The magmatic source activated at 14 kilometers, past tense. The tectonic stress loaded into a system with no deep buffer, past tense. You haven't been watching something approach. You've been looking at the record of something that already moved. The IGGCAS paper wasn't a warning. It was an explanation of what already happened between October 2024 and October 2025. While you were reading news about something else, the ground at Norris completed a deformation cycle that the system hadn't performed since 2004. It already happened. GPS station NRWY is still logging right now. The Sentinel-1 satellite passes over that basin every 12 days. The data being collected tonight will not be public for 60 to 180 days, depending on what it shows. What you're reading in any published report today reflects the ground's behavior from months ago. The current state of the Norris Basin, right now, this week, is something only people inside a federal monitoring station can tell you. And managed disclosure is not a theory, it's a policy. It exists in emergency management frameworks by name. It describes the gap between what a monitoring agency receives and what it decides you can use. They're not lying to you. They're calculating the cost of telling you the truth at full volume against the cost of what happens if they do. Check NRWY station data when it posts. Note the date it was collected versus the date it was released. That gap is the number to watch, not the deformation reading. The gap. Because if that window compresses, if the delay between what they log and what they release suddenly shortens to 24 hours, you'll know why, and you'll have between 48 and 72 hours to decide what to do with it.